Good evening and welcome to TiVi Tuần-san News of the Week. My name is Emma Doe. In today's news, Melbourne's Little Saigon market destroyed by fire. Vietnam angered over postage stamps released by China. And a Vietnamese transgender bodybuilder making waves in the conservative country. To today's top story. Firefighters say a fault in an electrical switchboard caused the blaze at Melbourne's Little Saigon market. On Wednesday morning, the Metropolitan Fire Brigade's Assistant Chief Fire Officer, Peter Thomas, told media that while the building did not have working fire alarms or sprinklers, it was still compliant. Co-owner Loc Lam said the building did have a regularly serviced fire alarm system, but conceded it was possible the system failed to activate. The Little Saigon market is an important hub for the local Vietnamese community in Melbourne's western suburb of Footscray. It was engulfed by flames at about 6 AM on Tuesday, destroying stalls and shops inside. No one was hurt in the fire. Part owner Loc Lam told TiVi Tuần-san about 30 shops and 25 leases were in the building.
On behalf of the owners, I'd like to share the big losses of our tenants. They have been loyal to us for more than 20 years. This is a difficult time for the tenants because they have prepared the goods and merchandise for Christmas, New Year and the Vietnamese New Year. We will try to build up again the business centre. This centre plays an important role within our community, and Maribyrnong City takes high regards the contribution of this centre. This is why they have named the centre Little Saigon Centre Precinct, and have developed a $14 million project with a car park and more shops around our Little Saigon shopping centre.
Mr. Lam said the estimated damage bill could exceed $12 million and added that it would take at least 2 years before the market is fully restored. Australia's Immigration Minister Peter Dutton has signed a formal agreement to return Vietnamese asylum seekers to their home country. The memorandum was signed in Canberra on Monday with Vietnam's Public Security Minister. It provides a formal framework for Australia to return people with no legal right to enter or stay in the country, including those intercepted at sea. In a media statement, Mr. Dutton said both governments had worked together to return 113 Vietnamese from 3 vessels intercepted by Australian Border Force since 2015. A Vietnamese woman working in Angola has been burned to death by robbers who broke into a hostel where she was staying. According to the Vietnamese embassy in Angola, the Vietnamese woman named Hoàng Thị Vân, another Vietnamese national named Nguyen Văn Vinh, and one Angolan were living in the hostel. The robbers failed to extort money from the group and instead bound the 3 together before setting them on fire. They were taken to hospital by Vietnamese neighbours. Tvts news reports that Vân died a day later and her Angolan friend died 3 days later. Vân remains in critical condition. Vietnamese-Angolan relations started officially in 1975, with Vietnam sending technical experts in agriculture, health and education to the country in the mid-80s. Recently, Vietnamese migration to the country has boomed, with mostly rural Vietnamese coming to work as labourers in the high-paying construction sector. To news in Vietnam. A court in southern Vietnam has jailed 4 men for people smuggling after they tried to reach Australia with a boat of migrants. 2 of the men were handed sentences of up to 3.5 years in prison, while the other pair received 18-month suspended sentences. The group of ringleaders were among 21 people on the fishing boat that sailed to Australia in May this year in search of higher-paying jobs. The remaining migrants did not receive charges. After reaching Australian waters in June, the boat was detained by the Navy, with the group of migrants flown back to Ho Chi Minh City shortly after. The recent case is the 3rd time Vietnamese citizens who were returned by Australia have been put on trial. Vietnam's diplomatic row with China over islands in the South China Sea has extended to stamps. On Tuesday, Vietnam's Ministry of Information and Communications website demanded China halt the circulation of postage stamps which depict Chinese-built lighthouses on the disputed Spratly Islands. The statement called the stamps a serious violation of Vietnam's sovereignty. China Post has also previously distributed stamps featuring the islands back in 2004 and 2013. Meanwhile, China has expressed anger over recent satellite images that show Vietnam's dredging operations in the southern end of the Spratly Islands. The work has increased the landmass of the Lad Reef and now stations a small number of Vietnamese soldiers as well as a lighthouse. Both Vietnam and China have extended their claim on the islands by building on reclaimed land. But while Vietnam has added about 0.4 square kilometres of land, China has added 3 times as much. Sovereignty over parts of the Spratly Islands are contested by multiple countries, including the Philippines, Malaysia and Taiwan. Vietnam is looking for new growth models as it moves away from the planned US-led Trans-Pacific Partnership, also known as the TPP. The move follows US President-elect Donald Trump's statement last month in which he expressed his intention to withdraw from what had been touted as the world's largest free trade deal. The TPP agreement, aimed at promoting economic growth, was signed in February 2016 and involved 12 nations including Australia, the US and Vietnam. Experts believed Vietnam would have been one of the nations that gained the most from the agreement. According to news agency Voice of America, Vietnamese officials are now seeking markets such as China, Russia and the European Union for their country's manufactured goods. Vietnam's economy has been dependent on the export of manufactured goods since the 1980s. Last year, the country's economy grew by 6.7%. About 1,000 villagers from the Ha Tinh province affected by the toxic Formosa spill protested on Monday against inadequate compensation. The group submitted a petition to the local people's office calling for each family on the petition to be compensated for their losses. In June, the Formosa Plastics Company took responsibility for the release of toxic chemicals from its plant in Ha Tinh. The release killed 115 tons of fish and affected the livelihoods of more than 200,000 people across 4 central provinces. The Taiwanese company pledged to pay $500 million in compensation, but protests have continued over the slow pace of the payouts. One protester told Radio Free Asia that some fishermen were receiving compensation while others were not. Malaysia has detained 12 Vietnamese fishermen for allegedly fishing in Malaysia's exclusive economic zone. According to the Malaysian New Straits Times newspaper, the boat was seized last Thursday. An inspection by the Malaysian naval authorities reported that none of the crew had valid permits or IDs to fish in the zone. In a statement, the naval authority stressed the seriousness of illegal fishing, referring to the detention of the Vietnamese boat as an act of deterrence. In the first 6 months of this year, 84 fishing boats and 608 Vietnamese fishermen were seized for illegally fishing in neighbouring countries. A US report shows the number of Vietnamese students in American schools has grown by 4.5% in the last year. The United States Student and Exchange Visitor Program report revealed Vietnam ranked 6th globally with more than 30,000 students enrolling in American educational institutions as of November. The current figure is almost double that of 2009, when Vietnam first made it to the top 10 countries with some 16,000 students studying in the US. The US, followed by Australia and the United Kingdom, is the favourite destination for Vietnamese students. Meanwhile, a report from the Institute of International Education says 2/3 of Vietnamese students come to the US to study at undergraduate level, with business and management being the most popular fields of interest. There are currently more than 1 million international students studying in all 50 states of the US. A transgender bodybuilder from Vietnam promoting LGBT rights has been making headlines across the conservative country. 27-year-old Giang Nguyen, who has been using the name Kendi after coming out as a trans man, is currently busy practicing in hopes of capturing gold at Vietnam's national bodybuilding competition. He claims the title of Vietnam's first openly trans male bodybuilder and has become a role model in the local LGBT community, which is facing a turning point for the fight in equality. Vietnam is set to make sexual reassignment surgery legal in 2017, also allowing trans people to change their ID documents to match their gender identity. That's all from TiVi Tuần-san News of the Week. I'm Emma Doe. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to your company at the same time next week.